Hey everybody, welcome to Do You Believe on ParanormalZoneTV. Thanks everyone so much for joining me tonight. Now tonight, also please, would everybody please give me a like and please subscribe to the show. I'd really appreciate it. And tonight, our topic is Goatman. Flesh or folklore. Now, is this creature a modern urban legend, or is it a demonic force, or does it have negative intent? Could it be a goat walker? Could it be a shapeshifter? Is it coming in and out from another dimension? Well, tonight I have Nathan Couch with me tonight, who is our guest, and we're going to be talking about Goatman. So Nathan, thanks so much for joining me on the show tonight.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Hey, now Nathan, I did some research on this Goatman, and it bears the resemblance of a demonic entity known as Baphomet, and it's half man, half goat, and it goes way back, mentions into the 11th century. And that image is, it's related to occultism, ritual magic, witchcraft, and Satanism.
That's correct. Baphomet is, he's an entity that a lot of people don't really know the validity of. They think that Baphomet might have been a creation to sort of give the Knights Templar a bad name. So I haven't really gone the Baphomet route with a lot of my research, but he does have a lot in common with various pagan entities, Roman Fauns, Satyrs, Greek Satyrs, who originally started out as half man, half horse like creatures until Roman influence kind of changed them to a goat-like creature, and then of course, the Greek nature god Pan, the Roman nature god Faunus.
Right.
So there is definitely a lot of pagan imagery there when you talk about a creature like Goatman. As to whether or not it's supernatural in origin, if Goatman is in fact real, I think a lot of people have to really lean that direction, because so far, nowhere in the fossil record is there's no type of horned mammal, there's no type of hooved mammal who has human traits. Rather, I would say there's no type of horned human-like mammal in the fossil record. So it would be very difficult for me to believe that this is a simple flesh and blood creature like some undiscovered species of animal.
Well, even in witchcraft, they use this image for their ceremonies.
The horned god, I believe they call it.
Right.
Yeah, there's goats have always had. They represent the natural world most of the time in these in this symbolism. Whether or not there's anything dark or evil about these goat-like entities, as far as pagan religions go, that's really up to each and everyone's own personal interpretation. I know in paganism, modern day paganism, they just represent sort of an animalistic sort of nature, natural quality, without necessarily being anything sinister. Of course, Christian views have that anything goat-like, like a humanoid goat hybrid, is naturally something evil, because a lot of the representations of Satan and demons have had hooves and horns and things along these lines. Basically Christianity modeled all these paintings and great artworks of the devil after Pan
Mm-hmm.
It was around the time when Christianity was really trying to get the last of the pagans to kind of convert. And whether or not this Christian devil, I'm not going to try to get into a theological debate. I never try to change anyone's mind on religion or anything along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
But as to whether or not any type of Christian devil would actually look like a goat, who's to say? Hopefully none of our listeners will actually get a look at any type of devil. So hopefully that will remain an unsolved mystery.
Now, Native American legend. Could Goatman be a skinwalker?
It's definitely possible. I don't have a very in-depth knowledge of skinwalkers, but Native American legend, there are some legends out there that deal with goats and tricksters, and goat characters in just about every sort of mythology or religion worldwide have sort of a trickster type quality to them, where they don't necessarily cause a whole lot of carnage or mischief, but they do cause trouble. So nothing too serious, but I could see how something along the lines of a skinwalker would be a possibility.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is, the thing is, this Goatman has a lot of character, not in image wise, but in what it seems to do. It kind of mimics actually Bigfoot, to me anyway, from what I've read on it. So and some people believe that Bigfoot comes in and out of other dimensions, and that he also could be a shapeshifter. Did you find any of that in your research?
There are boundless connections between a creature like Bigfoot and Goatman. In fact, there are a lot of Bigfoot researchers who, when a Goatman sighting crops up, not just like a campfire story, when someone says they saw this thing, a lot of the times the descriptions usually just sound like a large hairy humanoid. A lot of times descriptions of hooves or horns are completely absent. Not always, but the majority of the time. And a lot of Bigfoot researchers tend to think that these Bigfoot creatures are wandering into an area where a Goatman legend exists. And
okay, now back up a little bit.
See a strange hairy humanoid on Goatman Road, for instance, they immediately say, "Well, I saw a Goatman," instead of saying, "I saw something that looked like Bigfoot." So a lot of people think that urban legends are getting tangled up with these, Sasquatch type animals. As to whether or not Sasquatch is a skinwalker, I wouldn't be able to say. I know that the cryptozoological community does not look fondly on theories that involve the supernatural and Bigfoot, because they are actually looking for a flesh and blood creature.
Exactly.
So I myself think that Goatman would have to be supernatural. A creature like Bigfoot, on the other hand, could, in fact, be a natural animal. I mean, there are things in the fossil record that resemble Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm. Now, you had mentioned that some of the sightings did not include the hoofs and Goatman image. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay. So what are the report? Now, I understand that these reports started back in the 1800s in Louisiana. The sightings.
There have been a lot of Goatman sightings. A lot of stories say that creatures like this have been seen as far back as the 1800s and things along those lines. Not really sure where the first Goatman-like entity would be sighted, because it depends on what your definition would be of god, where does that end? Because people have given historical sightings of Greek satyrs and Roman fauns all across Europe since the days of the Roman empires and the days of Hellenic Greece. So sightings of these things, if you want to go very, very far back, can go back to just after the whole at the very beginning of Greece, really. So, but the sightings where we're talking about a Bigfoot type creature. The most famous Bigfoot type creatures who Bigfoot research. Well, I'm phrasing this in a confusing manner. There have been two big series of incidents that have occurred where Bigfoot researchers think a Bigfoot type creature has wandered into a Goatman area and been confused with a Goatman. One of which is in Maryland, in the town of Bowie, where people have always talked about this Goatman. And most of the sightings, I believe, the biggest, most famous outbreak of sightings began in 1971 and lasted into the 1980s before it kind of settled down. And although it had been sighted previously in decades earlier, I believe dating as far back, I think 1962 or around in there is the first time a creature called Goatman was allegedly sighted. And then in Fort Worth, Texas is the other big incident, and that was in 1969, I believe, when this couple said that they saw I believe they described it as a half man, half goat with fish scales on it that attacked a car and chased them away from Lake Worth. And the sightings with this creature happened all the way through 1969, stopping, I think, in November of 1969. But beyond that initial sighting, no one described it as looking like a goat. Everything else, including photographs of the creature, described and showed a very hominid, gorilla-like creature.
Okay, so is there a real picture of Goatman? Does somebody really capture a picture of him?
The only known image I know of a creature sighted in a Goatman-rich area, or a creature that has actually been called Goatman, was taken during that 1969 outbreak of sightings in Lake Worth. A gentleman by the name of Alan Plaster was driving around Lake Worth looking for the creature. It was right after the first sighting. People from all over Fort Worth were traveling all around Lake Worth, and people were seeing this thing on almost a nightly basis. And he was driving down the road. He saw this large, kind of shaggy, grayish-white, gorilla-looking creature, and he snapped a Polaroid picture of it. The image is floating freely around the internet, and I believe it is reproduced in Sally Ann Clark's semi-fictitious Lake Worth Monster book. And for all intents and purposes, it looks like a big albino Bigfoot.
Really?
So, that's the only known image, the only known photograph of a creature that has been called Goatman.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so are there any groups out there, because they track Bigfoot? There's all these groups, all these organizations that track Bigfoot. Are there any groups like that are tracking Goatman? Do you know that you know of?
Goatman is very peculiar when it comes to the area of Fortean and paranormal research, in that no one really takes them all that seriously beyond a few regional researchers. A lot of Goatman material is absent from the literature that's out there. You can find a lot of Goatman stuff in regional literature, like Linda Godfrey and Nick Redfern and Mark Obsasnik, just to name only a few, who have written primarily regional books, have covered Goatman quite thoroughly. But for the most part, cryptozoologists don't pay any attention to Goatman because fantastic an animal, and usually sightings that do describe an actual half-man, half-goat have some real supernatural qualities, so they kind of consider that it's more of the realm of ghost hunters, essentially. And then ghost hunters, a lot of ghost hunters pay no attention to it because it's too much of a physical creature, and they tend to think it's more of cryptozoology's domain. And then, of course, the ufologists pay no attention because there's no UFOs. So a lot of, as far as I know, there aren't any real expeditions out there, looking to find this creature. And I mean, especially considering Goatman usually haunts the outskirts of suburbia. That's normally where he's seen. And if he is
like under bridges, I understand. Like under bridges, he goes under bridges, by water.
He's usually described as being around bridges. A lot of times he lives in old abandoned houses, old abandoned buildings. Basically, he lives wherever teenagers go to make out or small children go to camp. He's sort of like a boogeyman who lives right just miles from our homes and our schools and things like that. So if he is really out there, there's really no way he could be a flesh and blood creature. It'd have to be supernatural. And it's really hard to mount an expedition for something like this. If he really is the same creature that Greeks and Romans talked about so long ago, he would be a sort of a trickster from, another dimension type creature, and he probably would just be popping in and out of our world, which, and then that gets into the whole realm of high strangeness, and a lot of ghost hunters and researchers don't really want to go quite that deeply in for it.
Well, so you said, are they in forests at all? Do they frequent the forest and hang out there? I mean, what do they eat? They have to eat. What do they eat, supposedly? Do you know what they eat?
Well, I've never really heard of any. I've heard a few legends, like in some small towns in Texas. Texas is pretty much the Goatman capital of the United States. It seems like, if I had enough time and money, I could probably find a Goatman legend or a Goatman sighting in dang near all 254, counties in Texas. And there are a couple of towns in Texas where this thing has been seen, where they say he raids bird feeders. The Lake Worth monster, who was described as a Goatman in his initial sighting, he supposedly, on his last known sighting during that 1969 outbreak, he woke up a man by the name of Charles Buchanan, who was asleep in his pickup truck in a sleeping bag. And he was lifting this Mr. Buchanan into the air, and he began panicking, and he grabbed a bag of fried chicken that was laying next to him in the truck, and he shoved it in the animal's mouth, and then it put him down and left with the chicken and swam away to a little island out in the lake. So those are really the only instances I've heard of it eating. They do inhabit areas that are semi-suburban, semi-rural. The Maryland Goatman out in Bowie, Prince George's County, Maryland, where he's seen in pretty much every town in Prince George's, or he's alleged to inhabit pretty much everywhere in that county. They say, well, it used to be a very rural area. It used to be very wild, very isolated. And now, because of urban sprawl, it's very suburban. It's pretty much just a suburb of Washington, D.C. at this point. So it has been seen in an area where there are woods that it could live in, but it's very, very near to us is where it's always seen. Very rarely does anyone go out into the vast wilderness and say they've seen this thing. Although there are some Goatman stories up in Canada. Particularly, it seems like coming out of Western Canada, where a lot of people will see this thing out in the woods when they're camping, kind of watching them, not just being creepy, but not, too aggressive.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what are these other names given to Goatman? Since he's regional. Mm-hmm. So what are the names in these regions that he is given?
More not. He is called Goatman, but there are a few choice Goatman type entities where he has his own regional name, like in Lake Worth. They call him the Goatman. Sometimes they call him the Mud Monster, and sometimes they call him the Lake Worth Monster, which is what he's most famously known for. And then another famous Goatman is outside of Louisville in Jeffersontown, Kentucky, and it lives on or under the Pope Lick train trestle, and so they call him the Pope Lick Monster, and Pope Lick is the name of the creek that runs under the trestle. Then there's a small town in Texas where he's called Old Foamy because of a creek along a road that is called Old Foamy. And then, Virginia and parts of eastern Kentucky have this creature called the sheep squatch, which which is kind of just recently, became famous to the general public because of appearances on shows like Monsters and Mysteries in America. Mm-hmm. And in Pennsylvania, they just call him the Sheep Man. So names along those lines. But just about anywhere where he's referred to by one of these local monikers, he's also just as famously known as the Goatman.
Okay, now, part of his legend as well is that he totes an axe and he chops people up.
Yeah, there are several locations where he allegedly carries an axe, and this is one of those traits that a lot of people roll their eyes at that sounds just like pure urban legend, and that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of Fortean researchers kind of don't pay any attention to Goatman. In Bowie, the Goatman of Bowie out in Maryland, he allegedly legend has it he was a scientist or who botched an experiment trying to cure some disease and mutated, and he ran out into the woods, found an axe, and went insane. And then the Pope Lick Monster in Jeffersontown, Kentucky, is also one of the more famous ones who carries an axe. He used this particular Goatman, the one out in Kentucky. He uses telepathy and mimicry and hypnosis and all these other supernatural talents to trick people into going out on the train trestle, where he then either attacks them or distracts them until a train hits them, or alternately holds them down on the rails until the train runs across them. And unfortunately, out in Louisville, people do get killed on that train trestle. And a lot of them have been going out there because of the Goatman. So whether or not he caused it with his supernatural powers, or it was just teenagers looking for too much of a thrill, that's open to debate.
So has he ever been...
And spray paint graffiti and, look for ghosts. And one of these kids took a wrong turn and fell out of the bridge and landed in the shallow creek below, and he ended up passing away. So there have been deaths associated with Goatman, but as far as anybody being hacked up with an axe, I don't think that's been verified.
And you had already mentioned about he's supposed to visit where teenage lovers make out. They said he's sexually aggressive.
There is a couple of sites out there that aren't trustworthy. There's a parody site, for instance, here in Wisconsin, where I'm located, that claims our local Goatman sexually assaulted a man in the parking lot of a bar. And on the surface, it looks like maybe this person's trying to tell a true story, and then you look at other posts on the website, and he claims that a Mrs. L. Bobbitt is teaching a sword fighting class at the local high school, and it quickly turns into parody. So I don't know if it actually is sexually aggressive, but I think its reputation for that comes from all these legends from antiquity.
Now, supposedly he has this horrific cry or scream, and then he gives off a horrible stench, which to me is still resembles Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are a lot of the instances where he's been seen. He's made a loud cry, especially out in Maryland, where the creature that's been seen out there generally sounds like a description of a Bigfoot. And yeah, he does here in Wisconsin, though, this is a sighting that was in my home county of Washington County, out in Kewaskum on a place called Goatman Road. It really convinced me I should start researching Goatman on a serious level instead of just considering it as a local urban legend. There was a gentleman here who was out bow hunting, waiting on a deer to come through early one morning when he heard a crashing noise. He was waiting on the deer, and it turned out to be a human-like animal. His description of the animal did actually match a Greek satyr from, myth. He said that it looked like a human from the waist up, bare-chested with a long gray beard and horns, and the lower half was two goat-like legs with hooves, and it was saying all these terrible things like curses. It was speaking in English that he could understand, which is the most amazing thing. And he said that it had just the most ungodly stench he had ever smelled. He said he described it as smelling like dead things and garbage. And after it left the area, he climbed down out of his tree and ran out of there, and I don't think he goes hunting over there anymore.
Oh, my God.
So, I mean, there are some sightings that attribute at least the smell to this creature when it's described as an actual goat-like entity and not just a hairy humanoid type creature. So, but I mean, if you really think about it, just about any wild animal, anything wild, anything that lives out in the wilderness is going to have a powerful odor. The only reason we humans don't is because we have soap and hot water and indoor plumbing and cologne and deodorant and things like that. So, I mean, you go to the zoo and everything there has a very powerful odor. So just about anything someone's going to encounter out in the woods is going to have a very strong scent. And if it's something as exotic as a Goatman or a Bigfoot, it's going to be a smell that's completely alien to us. So.
Now, what about he's been accused of killing animals?
Yeah, that's one of the more popular things that he's been blamed for. Particularly the Maryland Goatman out in Prince George's County is often blamed for causing local pets to go missing. As for whether or not that's an act of an aggression or him looking for a food source or things along these lines, I couldn't say. I do know that the first really major outbreak of Goatman sightings in Bowie occurred when a young lady's puppy was found mutilated. There was like a photo of it on the front page of the Prince George County News. It's pretty graphic, and it was it wasn't a very trustworthy thing to blame on Goatman, though, because this dead puppy was found not too far away from railroad tracks. And when something is hit by a railroad, by a train, sometimes the body ends up quite a distance from the track. So skeptics immediately said that this animal was killed by a train and not Goatman, which is a logical conclusion to jump to. But a lot of other pets supposedly went missing around this time, and no one really found out that a train necessarily did that. So that's one of the areas where he's blamed a lot for pet disappearances and mutilations. There was one sighting that occurred in the late 1970s or early 80s when someone saw this Bigfoot-like Goatman cross a highway on-ramp. It was being chased by a dog, and it stopped and turned around and picked up the dog and threw it for a very long way. So in that case, it apparently was self-defense, and that was, to my knowledge, that's the only time that the Goatman has been reported actually being seen harming an animal. So, if you think about it, if a dog is chasing any wild animal being chased by a dog, if it has the ability to do away with this threat, it will. So if this is a Bigfoot-like creature out in Maryland, it would make sense that if a dog attacks it, the dog would probably be injured or killed.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Nathan, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. Again, everybody, this is Nathan's book. He is the author of Goatman, Flesh or Folklore. And Nathan, thank you so much for joining us. Now, you want to give everybody your website and how they can buy the book?
Yeah, the book is actually not published yet. It will be out by October. So you're kind of getting a sneak preview at some of my research. The book will be available through just about anywhere where books are sold. If it's not on the shelves at your local bookstore, they can order it for you. It'll be available through all major distribution systems. My website is jnathancouch.com, and the last name is spelled exactly like you would suspect, Couch, and there will be links on where to buy it there as well. And that website has all sorts of information, including my past books my past book, I should say, and just basically whatever else I'm up to at the time.
Yeah, I just posted your name and your website as well.
Okay.
Oh, hey! So we have you before your book even came out. Yay! Awesome.
That's true. Yeah, this is a sneak peek. You're one of the first people to talk to me on this subject. I've only done one other previous radio show on the topic, so your listeners or your viewers, I should say, are getting behind the scenes access.
Awesome. Thank you. Can I just ask you one other question? Why did you want to write this book?
Well, there's a Goatman legend in the town I live in. There's several locations in Washington County, Wisconsin, that claim that there's a Goatman. Mm-hmm. And on the surface, it all sounds like an urban legend. Almost all of these legends associated with Goatman share traits with the dead boyfriend urban legend, the hookman urban legend. And I initially thought that's all it was. And I talked to this gentleman who saw the thing out in Kewaskum on Goatman Road when it was crashing through the woods, like a Greek satyr, and it was swearing in English. And it was just the most amazing thing I'd ever heard. So I really began looking into it, and I started, researching the Pope Lake Monster, the Fort Worth, the Lake Worth Monster, the Goatman of Maryland, and there's just so much interesting material there. I mean, people died looking for this thing. This thing has attacked pets, and it's just such an interesting topic, and I noticed that, a lot of people aren't really talking about it. I mean, you can find stuff about the Fort Worth Monster in Texas books. You can find stuff about the Goatman of Bowie in Maryland books, but there's nothing out there that puts all these sightings together as sort of all one big phenomenon. Mm-hmm. And that's what I really wanted to do.
Well, awesome. And best of luck to you on your book. I hope you sell thousands of books.
Oh, that would be great. Well, here's hoping. Hopefully everyone will find Goatman as interesting as I do, because he really is a fascinating entity or phenomena, however you want to say it. And I think the paranormal and Fortean world would really find a lot of stuff interesting. A lot of people, if you don't live in Maryland or Texas or Wisconsin, where these things are alleged to live, then a lot of people haven't really heard about it.
Well, Nathan, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm honored that you came on the show, and we're the second people to have you interviewed. I love it. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you. It was a great time.
Oh, thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Oh, that was awesome. Second show to have him interviewed. I love it. I love it. Hey, I want to thank everybody for joining me tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show. What I want to do is, hold on for a second. Let me go over to YouTube. Hold on.